So I've been doing research for our Sermon on the Mount series here at Disciple Dojo, and this is a complete tangent. But part of that research took me into the book of Zephaniah, and I'm having a fun time actually exploring and reading Zephaniah a little bit more than I had before. But there's a famous verse in Zephaniah that I've heard, I don't know, since I was in college, back at the height of the Passion worship era. And it was said by worship leaders, and I've heard it not just from Passion, but from other worship leaders over the years. I'm not sure if it's made its way into sermons. I'm almost positive it came from like a sermon popularizing it, and then it worked its way into worship. And then it just kind of became one of these Christian things. And that is the idea of God spinning around over us during worship. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. This was actually one of my favorite albums back when CDs were a thing in college, is Passion's Hymns, Ancient and Modern. So it was like a modern worship band, Passion, which if you were a Christian in college in the 90s and early 2000s, they were it. And they did an entire CD of remixing, modernizing hymns. And, you know, it had like David Crowder and Charlie Hall, Matt Redman, all just the big name worship leaders of the 90s. So one of the songs, this is track 3, Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee. Great song, by the way. And even their remix of it. I mean, if you don't like modern worship, then you won't like it. But I'm not a huge modern worship music fan, but I think it's a really good song. They did a great job. So at the end of it, though, this is always made me kind of chuckle. Listen to what they say at the end of the song. I'll bump it here, and hopefully this won't get a copyright strike.
A joyful kings, joyful over us. You spin around over us, God. You sing over your children. You are zealous for us, and we are zealous for you.
You spin around over us, God. What do you say? You rejoice over your children. You were zealous for us. We were zealous for you. Hold on, one more time.
A joyful kings, joyful over us. You spin around over us, God.
The joyful king is joyful over us. You spin around over us, God.
You sing over your children.
You sing over your children.
You are zealous for us, and we are zealous for you.
You are zealous for us, and we are
Jesus, Son of
zealous for
God
you.
and King of Kings, our Father God, we love you. Jesus.
And then they go on to the next song. So that's pretty standard. I mean, if you've been in modern worship services, if you're my Catholic viewers, you're probably just like, what did I just hear? It's okay. This is kind of an evangelical Protestant thing. You're probably familiar with those type of moments, you know, after a song, the worship leader is just feeling it and prays to the Lord and says things. And in this case, that phrase, you spin around over us, Lord. Where did that come from? I'm going to kind of walk you through where the idea of God spinning around over people came from, because I think it's a great example of how it's important to handle biblical languages with care, especially when teaching or leading others in worship. It's a solemn responsibility. So where did this idea of God spinning around come from? And that's even in other worship songs. I think of Marvelous Light, like lift our hands and spin around, see the light that I have, and you'll have like people in the congregation spinning around and stuff. And it's just, is it just charismania, or is there something theological to it? Well, I want to say, I think there's something theological to it, but it comes from not exactly understanding Hebrew. So let's see what I'm talking about. This is Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 17. I've got all the translations over here. If you see our Psalms videos, you recognize this setup. I'm using Logos for this. So here's the verse in Zephaniah, and it says, Adonai, Yahweh, your God, Elohayech, so Yahweh, your God, Bakir Bek, in your midst, Gibur, mighty or a mighty one, Yoshia, salvation or to save. You should recognize this if you've been watching the Psalms videos. Yasha, to deliver, to save. This is where the name Jesus comes from. To save. Yashish, he will rejoice alayech, over you, basimcha, in joy or in rejoicing. Like he will rejoice over you in rejoicing. Yacharish, and this is either he will be silent or he will rest, or some even translate it as he will refresh. Any of those three would work. But ahavato, in his love. He will rejoice over you in rejoicing. He will rest, refresh, renew in his love. And then here's the phrase where it comes from. Yagil alayach. He will, and this is the verb gil. We'll come back to that in a minute. He will do something alayach, over you. Same word as used up here, over you or above you or upon you. Barina, in rejoicing or in song, singing. Arena is like a singing song of rejoicing, whatever. So God will yagil. He will, what does this mean? Gil. Well, the translations, let's see how they say it. Lexham English, he will exalt over you. NIV, he will rejoice over you. King James, he will joy over thee. In JPS, he will shout over you with jubilation. The Septuagint, he will rejoice because of you. Dead Sea Scrolls, he will exult over you. Revised Standard, he will exult over you. That's what all of the revised versions have. New Revised Standard, ESV, New American Standard, he will rejoice over you with shouts of joy. Holman Christian, he will delight in you with shouts of joy. That's also what the CSB has, only instead of shouts of joy, he will delight in you with singing. And the Eugene Peterson says he'll calm you with his love and delight you with his song. So delight, shout, rejoice, exalt. Where's spinning coming from? Where is he will spin around over you? Because that's how it's gotten taught or mentioned in some various worship settings. And I just used one example from that Passion song because it was the one that I have heard so many times over the years. But I've heard it elsewhere before in modern worship settings. Where's the idea from Yagil that he will spin around over you? Where does that come from? One of the fun things about Logos, if you're unfamiliar with it, is that you can do in-depth word studies. And so Yagil comes from this verb, gil, to shout in exaltation or to rejoice. Sometimes it's translated as exalt, shout in exaltation, glad, delight, rejoice, surely, be glad, joyful, rejoices. Most of the time it's translated, you can see on the blue chart here, it's most of the time translated as rejoice in the Lexham English Bible. And so here's some examples it's used. Isaiah 9, they rejoice. Isaiah 61, they shall shout in exaltation. Habakkuk 1:15, exalts. And you can see how it's translated in the different lexicons. Shout in exaltation, rejoice, shriek ecstatically, shout with joy, rejoice, shout in exaltation, rejoice, exaltation. I mean, that's what gil means in Hebrew, the verb. So where is spinning coming from? Well, this is the Hebrew Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament, Halet, and here's the verb, gil, and here's the full definition. It's a technical term in Canaanite cultic language, agrarian cult. It means shout in exaltation or rejoice. And when it's used with the preposition al, that's how it's used in Hosea 10:5, and there's our verse, Zephaniah 3:17. So gil means to rejoice, means to shout. However, there is a verb that looks really similar and sounds similar to gil, and that is the verb galal. So gil would be spelled G, this is Gimel Yod Lamed, so G, and then this is maybe a vowel marker, so either an O vowel or a U vowel or an I vowel, but there's a vowel here, and then a Lamed, so G-I-L or G-A-L or G-U-L. G-L is the root of this, if you want to transliterate in English. This one is Gimel Lamed Lamed, G-L-L, Galal, Gilul, Galil, and Gil means shout, rejoice. Galal means to roll or to turn. It's used metaphorically of stones and rolling. And the related word, Galil, means revolving or turning or spinning. And it's used of doors, like a door on a hinge, Galil. It's related to the word for circle, like a rod or a ring. And this is actually possibly where Galilee, the name of Galilee, comes from. Because if you look at a map, Galilee is like the Sea of Galilee is a circle, and then all the cities are around the edges of it. So that area, Galilee, I'm not saying that's exactly where it comes from, but there's a relationship there, possibly. Some of the lexicons have made that connection. But here's the thing. So this Galil, it has the idea of turning or spinning. And so some preacher or teacher or worship leader somewhere probably did a word study on Yagil and mistakenly thought that this Yagil comes from the verb galal, which means turn or spin. And so Yagil Alayach, he spins over you. Oh, that's exciting. So instead of just, he rejoices over you. So now when they preach on this verse or sing about this verse or come up with a song about this verse, somehow the idea of galal, to spin, to turn, got read into a completely different word, gil, which just means to shout, rejoice. And so that's how I'm 99.9% sure that's how you ended up with the common trope in 90s worship and even in modern charismatic circles today, Zephaniah 3:17, God rejoicing over us. What it really means in the Hebrew is God spinning around over us, like a kid just spinning and, having fun and playing. And then you could just go in all different directions if you wanted to preach a sermon on that, mistakenly thinking that this is galal instead of gil. So does that mean that it's heresy and false teaching on the Passion CD to say, you spin around over us, Lord? No, it's just a Hebrew mistake. And it traces back to whoever that person heard that from, maybe in a sermon or a Sunday school lesson, or maybe they just misread it doing their own study. We've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes teaching or speaking. We all make mistakes sometimes. So this is one of the reasons, like here at Disciple Dojo, I try a lot of times to put either Hebrew or Greek or Aramaic or whatever language we're working with. If there's original text, I try usually, if I can, to put it on screen so that, not to look smart, not to intimidate people, but so that there's accountability. Like people watching can see, hey, this is what you are saying, but you made a mistake here, and I can see it right on the screen. And so it's just a layer of accountability. And it's also to demonstrate that, yes, we should be looking to the original languages, Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic, whatever. We should look to those languages for clues, for insights. We should do word studies to pull out nuances of the meaning that may be in the text that we're missing. But when we're doing that, we just have to be careful of committing what D.A. Carson calls exegetical fallacies. Professor He-Man on my shoulder right behind me has a video here on our Superhero Seminary playlist all about how this can happen in popular teaching and preaching, and how, even the best of preachers and teachers can mistake things and say things wrong, and exegetical fallacies can happen. And so the goal is just to be aware of them and to be open to correction if you are guilty of a mistake. The tendency, we want to try to explain it away, or we want to, try to come up, well, it really means, and sometimes we just need to say, yeah, actually, I thought it was this and I was wrong. It's actually this. And thanks for letting me know. So if thinking about the idea of God spinning around and running around like a little kid and spinning over you while you're singing your worship songs on the Sunday morning or a Saturday night or whenever you have your worship service, if that really fires you up, that's fine. I don't know that God doesn't express his joy in various ways, but there's nothing in the Bible that teaches that. Zephaniah 3:17 certainly does not teach that God spins around over us. It does teach that he exalts over us, that he shouts for joy over us, that he is a God who feels. He's a God with emotions and with passion, and he's a God who loves his people. And the irony is Zephaniah is one of the most stern and devastating books in the entire Bible. The theme of Zephaniah is all about the day of the Lord, which is why in my research from the Olivet Discourse series, it kind of took me on a little Zephaniah rabbit trail. And the book's only 3 chapters, so you can read it in just a couple of minutes. But it's a shockingly violent book in one sense, but then it completely turns and becomes like one of the most joyous and comforting books. And of course, that's what the day of the Lord is. God is always, it's a double-edged sword. God is love and God is a consuming fire. And both of those things are true at the same time. And so it's our relationship with God is what determines our relation to God. And so there's a lot more that can be said, and we'll maybe tap into some of that when we continue the Olivet Discourse series. So stay tuned. If you want to see that series, I'll link it in the video description. We have done, I think, 3-part. I think we're on part 4 right now. maybe part 5. I can't remember. But I'll put that playlist there and you can check that out if it interests you. By the way, we have some new designs in our online store. You'll notice I'm wearing what is this? Single and Loves Jesus. What is that about? You can't see it on camera, but it says the Grown-Ups Table Community for Single Christians. This is the shirt designed for our Grown-Ups Table group. So if you're unmarried, if you're a single Christian out there, divorced, widowed, just never been married, we would love for you to join us if you want to get connected. So I will put a link to the group in the video. It's on Facebook. It's just called the Grown-Ups Table. And this design and other designs that we have here on the channel, things that you'll see me wear sometimes, those are all available as well. But hopefully this motivates you to dig deeper into Scripture, but to dig carefully, because it really does matter. And it's very easy to make mistakes. And then those lead to all kinds of different teachings in popular Christian culture. But that'll do it for now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time back here at Disciple Dojo. As always, keep training.